Hi, Dharmendra. This is Krishna from Photon Infotech. Okay.
Okay.
So what are the collections you have used as part of your application?
Collections related. So mostly I use array list, hash map, tree map, comparable, comparator.
Okay. So as part of HashMap, can I add any object as to the key?
Come again.
Let's say I'm trying to use a HashMap as collection.
Okay.
I have an object. Can I go ahead and add an object as a key in HashMap?
Object of what?
Let's say employee.
Can we add employee object into hash map or not as a key?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we can add, no problem. But
Anything?
but we have to override hash code and equals method inside the employee class, and we have to return the hash code value as per the employee data, and in equals method we have to compare the data of two employee objects.
Okay. So how the collision is handled in HashMap? Any idea?
See, generally what they are doing when we are inserting any object as a key inside the hash map, so inside the put method, what implementation they have written overall, what I understand, first they are checking key is null or not. If key is null is there, then some different, I think they are using some internally bucket, and if key is null, then some separate location they are storing that key and value pair. Then if key is other than null, they are calling the hash code method, and hash code method that they are passing inside some hashing functions. There they are doing some calculation. So what internally they are doing, whenever we are going to add any object as a key inside the hash map, so object cannot be duplicate. We have to add unique object. So how they are identifying it is unique or duplicate? First they are checking hash code of the current object and all the existing object. If hash code of current object and all the existing object is different, then it will add that key, no problem. If hash code of current object and existing object is same, then they are calling the equals method. They are comparing the data. So equals method hash code is same and equals method returning false. Then again it will consider as new object that will be added. If hash code is same, equals method also returning true, then that will be considered as duplicate object, and that will not be added in the hash map as a key.
So, is that what you are trying to say? Let's say I have two different objects which happens to have same hash code, and if it has the same equals value, then it won't allow you to add it as part of HashMap, is it?
Yeah, as a key it will not allow, because that is duplicate. Duplicate key not allowed inside the map.
Okay, so you mean to say the collision is not at all allows us to have more than one element as part of HashMap, is it?
Come again, I didn't get.
So have you heard about collision as part of HashMap, inclusion of elements?
No, I don't have idea about that collision. I think it is like related to hash code matching, means where it will store. Two object hash code is same, means maybe it will get the same container or same bucket it will store. Something like this is there.
Okay, fine, that's fine. How about exception, Dharmendra? Have you ever used any customized exception as part of your application?
Yeah. Most frequently we have to use customized exception.
So what are the things that you will be doing?
Yeah, whenever we want to write a customized exception, then you have to write a separate class. And first of all, you have to decide whether you want to make this custom exception as checked exception or unchecked exception. If it is unchecked exception, then you write a class by extending runtime exception. It is recommendable. And if it is checked exception, then you write a exception class by extending exception. Next, what you have to do, depending on your requirement, if you want to customize the error message, description of the error, then you write the constructor, define some instance variable, and write the argumented constructor, call the superclass constructor with a string message as a parameter. So you can add the description of the error.
Okay. Have you ever used inner class as part of your application?
Inner class, I think I use some places.
Can you give me the scenario?
Inner class, I use, I think, some places. Generally, see, what is the inner class? When you
that's fine. I'm more interested about the scenario.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, see, I have one salary class. Okay. Shall I go ahead?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one salary class. That salary class is responsible to calculate the salary of employee. Now, what is my requirement? This salary class should be used by employee class only. No other class should be allowed to use this salary class. So if you are writing a class inside the source file directly, that will be accessible anywhere inside the package. You cannot use private modifier for the outer class. So in this scenario, we can define the salary class inside the employee class, and you can use private modifier for the salary class, and you can use salary class only for the employee. So that is your, we can say, it is instance in a class. Now this anonymous inner class will be used in the case of multi-threading. At the same class, at the same place, if you want to define, if you want to instantiate, if you want to override the method, if you want to start the thread also at the same line, then you can use the anonymous class.
Okay, I have a scenario where an SQL query is in place, which actually fetches data from my database. Okay.
Okay.
Let's say my table have a record of 100 records, where each record is uniquely identified by 4 different parameters.
Okay.
First name, last name, security social number, and let's say employee number. Okay. So what collection you would suggest to be used here, so that whenever my end user tries to access a particular record, he gets a particular record attributes in my portal. Okay.
I have a table that contains four columns. Okay. As you told, employee social security number, first name, last name, and one more employee number. Okay.
Yeah. The query is all in place, so you don't have to worry about the query about fetching the data from table and all.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in your suggestion about using a collection here, so that that can be used as part of the application, so that whenever an end user tries to query a particular data, it should fetch all the 10 attributes.
What collection class I should use, so that if user query the data by providing that 4 fields?
Correct.
Yeah. So it should return what?
The remaining 6 attributes. I said one particular row contains 10 columns, where it should retrieve the rest of the 6 columns apart from the 4 columns, whatever you are keying in.
Okay. So we have to use map subclass, any map subclass. Key I am providing, that remaining value it will provide. So
how do you go about it?
Yeah, so what we can do, we can write a separate class. Okay, in that we will define these 4 members, whatever 4 identifier you have, and that class we can use as a key for the hash map. And one more class we will define. In that remaining value we will bind whatever value remaining are there, and that class we will use as a value.
Okay, how do you add it? So you would be maintaining 2 different objects for a single object, is it? No, I'm just asking you. Did you mean to say that I would be having an object separately for a key and another object separately for a value?
I think that is one option we can use, but in that lots of code we have to write to map the data from key to the value, or Now, how many other records are there remaining?
So I just wanted your approach alone. Forget about the total number of records that is available in the table.
Yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to know your approach, how you will be doing it.
We have to use map only. You have key and you want to get the value. So map we have to use. And if you are only accessing the data, then you can use hash map. If you are doing some modification also, you can use linked hash map. So key we can use as these four members, and remaining we can supply as a value. Or hash
Okay, that's
map
fine.
of hash map we can use hash map or hash map. That's four data.
That's fine, Dharmendra. So you have mentioned it as multi-threading, right? So
Okay.
what exactly you have achieved? What exactly you have achieved in multi-threading as part of your application?
Yeah, see, in my last project, NBA, in that user requested to activate some services on their number. So one request ID will be generated, but for one request ID, they may ask multiple things: activate this activate this service, deactivate this. So for one request, there may be chance multiple sub requests will be generated. So to process all the sub requests at the same time, we have used multi-threading. For one
How do
user,
you
there
achieve it?
yeah, so we have written NBA sub request batch job. In that we have written the thread class. In the run method, again we call the all service related component, and all three services, like we have used their fixed thread pool concept we have used. Now three threads, suppose three sub services are should be activated or deactivated for that number. So that three services we have given task to the three separate threads. So all three tasks will run parallelly.
So what are the parameters that you would be passing to construct a thread pool?
What are the parameters we are passing to the thread pool?
Yeah, construct that. You said that you would be constructing a thread pool, right?
Yeah. So to create the thread pool, you have to pass integer as a parameter. Like how many threads should be there in the thread pool at a time. So like they have given, I think, executor service class is there, and executor is there. Using that, you have to call new fixed thread pool, in that you pass some integer value.
So which one you have used as part of your implementation?
New fixed thread pool, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. From concurrent package, java.util concurrent package, Java 5.
Okay. So what are the frameworks you use? I mean, you use both Struts and Spring, is it?
I use Struts also in initial two projects, and then in these project, last three projects, we have used Spring and Hibernate.
Okay. Spring, which version you used?
Spring 3 we have used.
Is it annotation-based application or XML-based?
Yeah, annotation-based only.
So can you just give me a flow how request gets processed in Spring?
Spring MVC.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So in Spring MVC, suppose we have presentation layer, controller layer, service layer, and model layer. So suppose from the presentation layer, we have written some, suppose input JSP or login.jsp. In that form, you have to use a Spring tags form : form. In that action you specify, and command name you specify, request method you specify. Now when you click on submit button, then one URL will be formed. With that URL, request will be forwarded to the server. On server, in web.xml, you have configured dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet is the front controller for Spring MVC. Like in structs, you have action servlet. Here they have given dispatcher servlet. So dispatcher servlet takes the request, client request, whatever you have given. It will take the URL pattern. Now, using that URL pattern, it will contact one component of a Spring MVC called as handler mapping. Handler mapping is responsible to take the URL. Based on that URL, it will identify which controller class of your application, which controller class, which method is responsible to process this URL pattern. So that controller class information and method related information will be sent back to the dispatcher servlet. Now, if you have registered some kind of like interceptors, so that all the interceptors will be called. Finally, controller class, that particular class methods will be called. And in that method, if you have used service class, there that object will be created. It will contact finally database using model layer, AIS layer. Then it will come back. Finally, from controller class, you are returning some string. That is the view logical name. That will come to the dispatcher servlet. Again, dispatcher servlet will give view logical name to the view resolver. Again, one component in a Spring, view resolver, that is responsible to take a string that is view logical name as a parameter, and it will add some prefix and suffix, and it will prepare entire path of the view that will be rendered to the client. So that view will be returned to dispatcher servlet, and it will display that to the client. In middle, some more thing is there, like binding result object will be created, model attribute will be created, map object will be created. If you want the validations, so that validate method will be called. So these are also there in middle.
Okay, that's fair enough. So let's say I have a URL as part of my application. So let's say one URL gets me to a welcome page, another URL gets me to a registration page.
Okay.
How does it get differentiated as part of your application?
How to write that? Means when I click on one link, then it should display login.jsp or whatever welcome page, and another link if I click, it has to display registration page. This is your requirement?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, so you write one form first, you define one, you can use hyperlink, or using JSTL you can form the URL. Now you define here something so welcome dot do. One you specify one what we can say ahref, in that you write so welcome dot some do, okay, and that's it. Now you click on this. So when you click on this, you have to specify one controller class. Now first web.xml you configure with dispatcher servlet. In controller class you define some dummy in any class like welcome. There you specify at the rate controller, and then you write one method so welcome method. It will not take any parameter if not required. If you can skip that. Return type should be a string, and on top of method use at the rate request mapping, and in double quote first parameter you specify whatever you have given this side. You have given so welcome dot do. So same thing with slash you specify so welcome dot do, and second you specify the method type, like whether it is get request or post request, and from that method you return suppose if your welcome file name is welcome.jsp or index.jsp. So from the show method you return index you write. Now what will happen? Now this will work. You are able to see your welcome page. If you click on the link that so welcome.do, this URL pattern will be formed, that will be given to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet will contact the handler mapping. Handler mapping will based on this URL pattern, it will verify which class is there. Okay, this controller class is there. This method has to process the request. Again, it will go to that controller class, that their object will be created. That method will be called, and it will return the string, that is index. Now view resolver will add index.jsp and some slash, and that index.jsp will be displayed to you. So this is in the case of if you don't have any input field in your application. Now about you ask registration. So for registration, you have to write some command class. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's fair enough. And so you said about request mapping at the controller, right? As part of your class, annotations you will be mentioning at the rate of controller, at the rate of request mapping, right?
Yeah.
So to enable that, should we need to consider anything as part of our configuration file?
Yeah. You have to specify component scan. You have to enable one we can say XML element, component scan, and package equal to complete where controller classes are available. That annotation config context hyphen annotation config you have to enable, and second component scan package equal to that package name where controller classes are there, so that they can verify.
Okay, how the session is handled in string MVC?
Yeah, a controller class, on the top of controller class only, like where we are writing @controller, there only you write @session attributes. So that controller class object will be stored in the session.
So let's say I have two methods as part of my controller. The first time that my page is clicked by an end user. So in that case, how the values get stored as part of session?
Okay. So for that you have to write one bean class. In Spring it is called as model class. Okay. And that bean class you write like employee class with ID, name, email, whatever you want. You write setter and getter method. Write the constructors required. And while sending the request, now you have to specify command name also. Command name, some user, whatever is there, employee, and then URL action value and request designator, maybe post get whatever, and then automatically a Spring we can say Spring MVC we can say container is responsible to create the model object for you. Okay, map object will be created. In that model object will be added automatically employee, and because of using @session attributes, that will be added into the session. It will not add into request. If you want, you can do also like you can write one method, something so imply or something method. There you can pass map object as a parameter, map model. In that method you can create the imply object, and you can store all the data, and you can write session.set attribute of that command name, whatever logical name is there, and second the imply object. That also we can do, and that we want inside the controller method which has to process. So there you have to use one more annotation @model attribute, and one logical name you have to specify that will be same as the command name. So @model attribute annotation is responsible to bind your model class into the corresponding method parameter.
That's fine, Dharmendra. So have you ever used Hibernate or any other ORM as part
Yeah,
of your
Hibernate I used in almost all the projects.
Okay. So by default, will I have my associated object loaded?
No. By default it is following lazy loading.
Okay. So to enable it, what I need to do?
Lazy init equal to false we have to use. If you are using XML approach, lazy -init equal to false you have to use. For annotation, also related one annotation they have given on entity name @table, and lazy.
That's okay, Dharmendra, that's fine. So
yeah, in XML we have to write lazy -init equal to false.
Okay, so how about your practical exposure? So is that all annotation-based Hibernate mapping, or you had XML-based Hibernate?
No, mostly annotation-based. In first project, I think we have used XML HBM file. In almost our remaining project, we have used the Hibernate 3 annotation, JP annotation.
So how do I get automatically created sequence number from a table to Hibernate?
Yeah. So for that we have to use first to specify as a primary key, use @ID, and to use the sequence or auto increment, by default they have given @generated value, and in that std equal to generation type dot auto or sequence or table or something more is there. Identity also there, I think. So generated value annotation you have to use. In that generated value, if you are using automatically, it will use as per the database. Like Oracle supports sequence, so it will use sequence. MySQL supports auto increment, so it will use that. If you want, you can specify generation type, and they have given enum. In that some constants are defined that you can use.
Okay. Have you used as part of Spring? Like, have you ever used the Hibernate template or anything of that sort?
Yeah. Hibernate template only we have used in our application by integrating that Hibernate related configuration in a Spring context.xml file. Because Hibernate template, you no need to start the transactions, you no need to create the build session factory object. So all like transaction management related code they are handling internally.
So how did you implement? I mean, there are two ways of doing it, right? So which way you have implemented as part of that application?
Yeah, see, we have written driver manager. First, we have configured driver manager, and using driver manager, we have configured annotation session factory. In that, we have passed driver manager and Hibernate properties related information. Whatever URL, username, driver class name, password, that all information. And then we have created Hibernate template object by passing that session factory as a parameter. And that we have injected in services class by using @autovariant. And that using that Hibernate template object, we have used the flavor of Hibernate like save, update, whatever methods are there, delete.
Okay. So when you say auto, what are the different ways of resolution happens while injecting the bean?
For injecting the bean. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, so those two type of wiring is there. One is explicit wiring and implicit wiring. Explicit wiring, you have two options: setter injection and constructor injection. Implicit wiring, you have three options: by name, by type, and by constructor.
Okay. So what types of injection that normally you guys are used as part of your application?
We are using we are using auto wiring. So @auto var annotation, sometimes @resource, or sometimes @injector. If you want to by name, if you want, you can use @qualifier also.
Okay. So how about web services RESTful? Have you ever used Jersey?
Yeah. Sun Jersey we have used in RESTful web services.
So what are the methods that you have implemented?
What are the methods? Full CURT operation we have implemented. Post, put, delete, and get.
So what is the difference between Jersey RESTful web services and the RESTful web services that comes as part of a Spring?
Okay, Spring-based web services and RESTful web services. No idea.
That's okay. How about
maybe
JSON?
I think they have given some built-in support for something like Hibernate. If you compare Hibernate and Hibernate with a Spring, they have made it very easy to use that. Something maybe they have given OXM or something they have given a Spring OXM. Tell me next.
That's okay. That's fine, Dharmendra. So how comfortable you are in constructing a JSON object?
Yeah. JSON object I can construct. I can process that by using JSON tokenizer.
Okay. How do you convert incoming or XML response to JSON?
Yeah. So in RESTful web services, what we are using, suppose I have one XML or that I want to convert into, or suppose I have one class. Generally what we have used, class is there. That class we have to give sometimes response as XML, sometimes you have to give as a JSON, that depending on the client requirement. So if you want XML or JSON, first you have to use JAXB some annotation for your class, like @XML root element, @XML element, @XML attribute, and then inside the web service class methods, you have to specify the @produces. In that you have to specify media type dot application underscore XML or application underscore JSON. So from that method you can return either a string or that particular class. Because of using @produces, that media type, it will convert your class object into XML or JSON depending on what information you are providing. Now again at client side, you create the client object, you create the configuration object, create the web resource object, pass the complete URL, and then you can call get method by passing a string.class or that particular class name. So you will get that. Later you can by using the API provided in JAXB, you can marshal and unmarshal, or you can use JSON jar file and you can unmarshal that to data.
Yeah, that's fine, Dharmendra. So I'm pretty much done from my end. Do you have any questions for me?